With every series, there is always a chance for it to become a story that really reaches the hearts of its audience, making them feel inspired to create their own stories and original characters based off it. However, there is a way to purposefully make your story OCable, so you can create a manga comic or light novel that will inspire your readers to develop their own characters. Some examples of manga and anime that usually get a lot of OCs include My Hero Academia, Steven Universe, Madoka Magica, and Naruto, among others. Today I want to talk about how you could create an OCable story with tips and tricks that you can apply to your own creations. My first tip is create a strong power system or ranks in the story. One of the best ways to make a story with a power system more OCable is to ensure that the power system has certain power categories. To put it into simple examples, you might have a power system based off water, earth, fire, and air. Or you might have another one based off the planets. Or you might have a different one based off maybe different types of food or different types of crystals. It's also important to create a power system with a variety of powers that match up to these different categories so that people can create a character and then make them balanced with the particular types of categories in your story. Your story doesn't necessarily have to have a power system, but creating certain ranks in the story can also be very helpful. For example, maybe in your story, while all the characters might go to the same school, there might be different clubs or different ranks in the classes, and so this can be a way for people who are creating their own OCs to really break it up between these different roles and create characters that suit every different aspect of your story. My second tip is create a rich and well-developed universe. So you really want to create a universe in your story that will make your audience want to feel like they want to be a part of that world. A good example of this, I think, is the world of Harry Potter. The Harry Potter universe is so well developed and there's so much to explore, and people really want to explore that kind of universe. So when you're applying this technique to your own mangas, comics, or light novels, it's important to create a universe that your audience would want to explore. So it might help if you create a map or write down a list of really important and significant locations that you could incorporate into your story that would give your audience and your characters plenty of locations to see more of. My third tip is create characters that your audience cares about. This really goes well along with the previous tip. When your audience really feels a bond and a connection with your characters, your audience is going to want to experience the world along with those characters. And a good way for them to do this is to create OCs who might be friends or maybe partners of the characters in the story. For example, maybe there's a really kind character in your story who just really wants to make a friend. And so maybe an audience who's reading about this character finds that this character doesn't find the perfect friend for them. Maybe they want to create an OC who would be the right friend for this character. So as you're going through and you're creating characters in your book, see if there might be characters you could add that maybe aren't fully complete as characters. Maybe this leaves your audience more opportunity to create OCs that balance well with these characters. My fourth tip is reflect the power system or ranks in the character designs. For example, in many stories with a stronger power system, like the ones I mentioned at the very start of this video, usually their outfits or their design reflects the powers they have. And this is a good way to make these designs more appealing, and it makes it a lot more appealing as a kind of base template when your audience is wanting to create their own OCs. For example, a character with water powers in your story might have a kind of watery design or an outfit based off that element. Or for example, in Sailor Moon, all of their designs are based off their respective planets. And then you have series like Madoka Magica, where their outfits are really based off their powers and what they need to use in battle. So think about how you can apply the power system to your character's outfit, and this will carry over when your audience is wanting to develop their own OCs also. If your story doesn't have a power system and just has ranks such as different clubs or groups or different ranks in the school, you could show this by their different school uniforms, or it could be that maybe they have different careers and they could wear different uniforms when they are working. My fifth tip is leave opportunity for backstory. As I mentioned before, when you're creating an OCable story, it can be very helpful to create a kind of base for your audience to follow, and the more of a base there is for characters they create, the more likely you're going to find that a series becomes OCable. And in this as well, it's important to look at the backstory and think about how you could create a kind of base backstory that most of the characters in your story might have, a common goal or a common enemy, for example. For example, in Madoka Magica, most of the magical girls believe that they are fighting against the witches. And so this is a common enemy and a common goal that pretty much all the magical girls eventually have, because this is their main common enemy. The same goes for other series where there might be a main villain or a main emergency that your characters must face. Therefore, when your audience is creating their own OCs based off the story, they would likely already have the villain and the main enemies planned out, and it makes the OC designing a lot more simpler. So basically, as a kind of add-on to this part, what you're really aiming for when you're making a story OCable is you want to make it simple enough so that people can easily create their own OCs based off the universe that you have created. My sixth tip is leave some parts of the story open, sparingly. Leaving open ends in your story is a bit risky. You want to make sure that enough of the ends are tied up by the end of the story so that your story makes sense and it has a suitable ending. However, if you want to make your story even more OCable, you could add some aspects of the story that you leave open, or you don't really answer all the questions in those parts. For example, maybe a problem that is not fully resolved, or maybe a certain location that isn't fully explored, or maybe a character where you haven't fully revealed everything about this character. So when you sparingly leave some parts of your story open, this also allows more opportunity for your audience to potentially create OCs or write fanfiction to put their own interpretations on these parts of the story. My seventh tip is use color schemes in design. Color schemes are a great way to make the design stand out more, and I know that if you're creating a black and white manga or a light novel, you may not necessarily show the colors in these pages, but in things like cover art and that, you might end up showing the characters' designs. Your main story's cast, if they wear certain outfits which might be pink, blue, and green, then there are opportunities for your audience to create OCs that might have different colors as their main color scheme in their outfits. For example, things like orange or red or purple or other colors that aren't part of the main cast. This is just a subtle way to encourage people to want to create their own OCs. And you will notice that when most people create OCs from OCable stories like My Hero Academia or Naruto or Madoka Magica, people will usually look at the main color schemes subconsciously and they will create a character who is a different color scheme to the main characters. And so by not using all of the colors in your main cast, you allow your audience more opportunity to create unique character designs and colorful character outfits without necessarily using the colors that you have already used in your main character's designs. My eighth tip is find a way that OCs could be tied into the main story. Basically what I mean by this tip is that when you're creating certain scenes in your book, leave open areas for OCs to be able to help. Because your characters shouldn't be perfect all the time, and maybe when your character shows weaknesses or difficult moments, maybe this is an opportunity for your audience to create their own characters who can step in and help these characters through these difficult moments. Finally, my ninth tip is encourage your audience to create their own OCs based off your story. You'll never really know how interested your audience might be in creating OCs based off your story until you ask them. I think sometimes people might be hesitant to do something like that if they aren't sure if the creator would be happy with them doing it. So if you make it open, maybe post it on your social media or something and say, I'd be happy if you developed OCs based off my story, then I think that people would be more likely to want to create OCs based off your book. And I think letting them know this and being open about it is one of the best ways to start creating a more OCable story. Thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of mangas, comics, or light novels you're creating because I'd really love to hear about them. Especially let me know what ways you are creating a more OCable story. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next video. Bye!